Sir, I'm going to apologize for my raspy voice. I'm getting over a nasty sinus infection.
No worries.
So
We've got a small
a
group
little
here.
congested at the moment.
It's the time of year.
Well, Mrs. Barnhill, as I mentioned earlier, we're here this evening to conduct a public interview for those candidates that have submitted their letters of interest to fill the vacancy on the board that was created by Mr. Kefer. We did receive your letter of interest, and as you know, there was one other that was submitted. Your letter of interest has been shared with all of the other board members. They have a copy of it in front of them.
Okay.
Before we get started, I just wanted to establish one thing, and that is the length of term of this position. This would be an appointment that would technically be an appointment that would run until the board reorganization meeting the first week of December of 2017.
Understood.
Anybody being appointed to this position, as well as anybody else that might be interested in seeking the position, will have to run for election or re-election, as the case may be, this spring, to be placed on the May primary ballot. Okay? Mrs. Barnhill, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and if you are ready, I am happy to begin.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, good evening. Mrs. Barnhill, would you please tell us why you have submitted your letter of interest for a position on the Board of School Directors for Pottstown School District? And if you could please provide us with some highlights.
Well, I read the article in the paper, and then, of course, I always look at the school district website just to see what the kids are doing and what's going on. And I thought, well, somebody has to step up to the plate, and I've done it before for 4 years. And I thought, well, 1 year, that's, you know, like a walk in the park almost. But I just feel that education is really, really important. It's always been very important to me. And I think that as a concerned community citizen, you need to stand up for what you believe in. And if you can do something to help, then it's your responsibility to put yourself out there and try to do it.
Can you please tell the board how long you've lived in the Pottstown School District, and during those years, how you've been involved with the Pottstown School District?
We moved to North Franklin Street in 1985, so we've been there 31 years as a homeowner. My father's graduate of the Pottstown School District. My children are graduates of the Pottstown School District. I was involved in the Franklin PTA. Way back before that, I even student taught at Franklin. I taught with Ann Schwank in 4th grade. But I've always loved the school district. We've always been part of the band parents and the PTA and all the different fundraising things, and we go to the concerts and things. So it's your community. You have to be involved. You have to be proud of it. You have to take responsibility for it, and you have to support it.
Would you please explain to the board whether or not you have experience in serving on any other organizational boards, and if so, could you characterize briefly for the board what your relationship was with either the board president or the executive director?
Okay. I've not been an executive director or board president for anything, but I've been in several quilting guilds where I've served as secretary or treasurer. I worked for the Boy Scouts of America, and I was the only paid person in my district. I was responsible for close to 170 units, and I had to go out and raise money to pay my salary and to keep the council afloat. But in doing that, it was always something that my family could participate in as well, so I wasn't taking away from them. But, you know, and scouting is something that I truly believe in, just like education, so it was one of my dream jobs.
I can imagine. Can you give...
I don't think I finished, the last part of that question was...
Feel free, and let me rephrase, and let me restate that so
Sure.
you understand. It's what experience do you have in serving on any other organization boards, and how would you characterize your relationship with the leadership of that particular organization?
Okay.
Whether the leadership was an executive director that oversaw the board, a board president, or what have you.
As I said, never a director or the president, but secretary, treasurer, and all these cooperative. It was just a volunteer position, but I never had any complaints or any problems, and it's just part of the organization when you belong to a guild or something like that. you always participate, and they always expect you to take on a role in the board and serve a term. So that's how I did mine.
Mrs. Barnhill, can you provide 2 experiences where you placed your personal desires aside and acted in favor of the greater good of the organization?
Well, as I said, I did work for the Scouts, and that was very consuming job. It was a paid position, but at the same time, it was a full-time position, 24/7. It wasn't something you just could put aside. So when you're raising a family, that can be very difficult. And there were times when I had to give up a family outing or a family birthday party or something to go to a event in the district because your presence was required or, you know, expected. And sometimes you had to put those things on the back burner and say, you do something special at another date. So you, as a parent and as a person in business, you have to be flexible. You have to learn that, you know, you have responsibilities, but you have choices as well. And sometimes you have to make the harder choice for the good of the organization.
Mrs. Barnhill, as a school director, which well you know, you're committed to at least 2 meetings a month, and you're also going to be serving on subcommittees that may require additional commitments or meetings. Will you be able to work this into your current schedule with some flexibility?
Yes. I have, my present position is basically I'm a consultant for a large oil company, and the position that I serve in the company I work for. So I work for my company and this other subsidiary, and I am like go-between, and I have that, but I have a set schedule. And I have a coworker, so there's just 2 of us on this particular team, and her hours are different than mine, so we tend to flip-flop. If she has a doctor's appointment or something, I'll work her shift, she'll work mine. So I do have flexibility. And right now I'm only in one organization outside my quilt guild, but that meets on a night that doesn't interfere with the school board nights or the committee meeting nights. So I think I have enough flexibility.
Mrs. Barnhill, what do you consider to be the most pressing issue in education today? And to clarify that can be the most pressing issue that you believe is pending here in the Pottstown School District or just public education generally?
Well, I think the most important thing is you have to be current, but you have to know your student base. I think the school board serves students first. They're the main person that you're providing for, and they don't get a vote or a say in the matter, but the people that you elect or your superintendent, the goals and the things that you set in need for the school district, you have to align those, and you have to see that they're carried out by the school education staff to give the kids the best possible education they can get for the dollars that we have in the district.
In your opinion, what is the responsibility of a school director?
First, to be a good listener. Second, to be not concerned about exactly how you feel about something, but to put yourself in the position of everybody else that's voting on the board, to see where they're coming from and why they feel the way they do. No one can be, it can't be just one vote that sways or does anything. I learned that the last time I was on the board. And you have to think about what you're trying to accomplish and what the goal and what it's going to do to change for the better in the district. So you have to be willing to be flexible and understanding, and you have to listen, and you have to weigh out the good versus the bad.
And finally, Mrs. Barnhill, what special quality can you provide to this board?
Well, I think I can provide years of experience in all phases of life: parent, grandparent, child, teacher, worker, and then I feel that I've always taught my family and my children, and I've always asked them, whenever you take on a responsibility or do something, you do it to the best of your ability. You always do it fairly, and you always put the work in. If you don't put the work in, you don't get anything out. And if you're saying you're going to do something, then you have to keep your word. You have to be there for everybody.
Mrs. Barnhill, thank you, and thank you for submitting your letter of interest. At this point, I'm going to
I'm
ask.
sorry it got lost.
It didn't get lost, it got delayed.
Yes.
At this point, I'm going to ask if any members of the board have any questions for Mrs. Barnhill, any comments they wish to offer, or if they wish to request clarification with respect to any of the answers that Mrs. Barnhill has offered this evening.
One first question, just,
Mr. Heidel?
I know you, in your initial statement, you had made, you said, well, a year's a drop in the bucket. Would you plan on running for re-election for that 2-year seat? Or are you looking at this as 1 year and I'm done?
No, I would probably, depending on how, I didn't want to make that commitment right yet until I saw, what was going on. I wanted to get my feet wet again and then decide whether I wanted to make a full-time commitment. Only reason I say that is because after I served on the board the last time for 4 years, I was very ill when I left the board and had cancer, and I had cancer surgery, and I'm a survivor now for 8 years, so that was the only reason I didn't say I would make the full commitment at this time.
Mrs. Wien?
Our school district is both socially and economically diverse, as you would know, being a resident of Pottstown. How would you close the gap between the levels of diversity so that everybody feels welcome to come into the schools?
Well, that's all done by communication. You have to have open communication when you're on a board or when you're running an organization. It's all by word of mouth, publicity. We get a lot, John does a wonderful job with publicity. And, you have to look at the backgrounds of everybody we have elderly people in the community who are retired and, have done their time with their kids and don't want to be involved, but you still have to get the word out to them because basically they come and they vote. And then you have the young parents that are busy, both parents working, there's not a lot of extra time there because they're taking care of their families, but you have to make it enticing enough for them to want to participate. And then you have children in the community that are raising children, and they're not sure what they're doing. So you've got to kind of take them under your wing too and try to keep it. We have a lot of graduates here that had children when they were in school and then went back to school, and it's a very diverse community, not as well as, and then there's Indians, in the area, and how do you get the word out to them? But that's basically, you've got to keep the communication lines open and to welcome that out.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions by any board member? Seeing none, Mrs. Barnhill, do you have any questions for the board or any clarification you'd like to provide with respect to any of the responses you offered this evening?
I'm just honored to be able to interview, and, I would serve to the best of my ability if I was nominated and go from there. I'm happy to do my part.
Well, thank you, and once again, thank you so much for submitting your letter of interest. Just by way of information, although it's the board's prerogative, it's unlikely that they will render a final decision tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than likely that they will discuss and render a decision with respect to the appointment at their voting meeting on Monday, October 24th.
Okay,
So
that's
just
fine.
wanted to give you a timeline as it
Mhm.
relates to that. But thank you once again.
And it was a pleasure to meet everybody. Some of you I've met before, but some for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you.